They moved into the old house on a Monday. It was late spring, the air still carried the scent of thawing earth, and the previous tenants had left in a hurry. No one had bothered to clean out the attic. It wasn't the sort of place you find in listings, more like something you hear about through a cousin of a friend, passed along with a shrug and a low price. Big for the cost. Older than it looked. Victorian bones, modern plumbing, allegedly. Jenna and Mark didn't mind the dust. They were excited. New start, new house, and 2 kids who finally had rooms of their own. The first few days were nothing but settling in, unpacking boxes, patching flaking paint, arguing over where to hang pictures. Normal stuff. Then, on Thursday, Mark was crawling behind the water heater in the upstairs hallway closet, tracing a leak. He hit something hard. Not wall. A flat panel, propped behind insulation and a tarp. A mirror. It was tall, a little over 6 feet, with an ornate blackened frame that looked hand-carved. Ivy-like motifs twisted along the edges, all scorched and chipped like it had seen fire. The glass wasn't cracked, but it was off. Dimmer than it should have been, like the reflection was one breath behind you. They put it in the hallway, opposite the guest room. Mark liked the way it filled the space. Jenna wasn't so sure. She said it looked like it belonged to someone else, like it had seen too much. But she let it stay. That night, things began to happen. The lights in the hallway started flickering. They replaced the bulb. It kept happening. The cat refused to walk past the mirror. Stood there, tail puffed, low growl in its throat, and backed away without blinking. In the baby monitor, their toddler began waving at the hallway, always at the mirror, murmuring to someone named Elle, a name they didn't recognize. And then there was the shadow. Fleeting at first. A flicker. Like someone crossing the hall when no one else was upstairs. Only ever caught in the corner of your eye. Only when the mirror was uncovered. By Saturday, the house felt different. Not in the way new houses feel unfamiliar. Not even in the way old houses sometimes creak and settle. It felt like the air itself was heavier. Like breath didn't reach as far. Like the walls were listening. Mark blamed the wiring. Old circuits, he said, tapping the hallway light switch again as it buzzed and dimmed. But Jenna had started watching the mirror. Really watching. Because it wasn't just flickering lights anymore. In the late hours, when the kids were asleep and the house stilled into its nocturnal hum, they'd both caught the same thing. A figure. Not reflected. Inside the mirror. At first they thought it was a trick of lighting, a coat hanging, a shadow from outside. But it moved wrong. It wasn't cast from anything. It passed behind them when no one was there. And it flickered. Not like a glitch or a fast fade. It pulsed in and out, like a candle behind smoked glass. And worse, it seemed to notice them noticing. That first night they both saw it, the shadow paused. Almost like it had turned. Jenna refused to look into the mirror after that. Mark tried to rationalize it. Stress. Pareidolia. He even looked up some neurological thing called Charles Bonnet syndrome, though he didn't say it out loud. But when he left his phone recording overnight, just to see, the footage froze. 12 seconds of static. Then the feed came back, and for a single frame, someone else was in the hallway. Not a shape. Not a blur. A woman, tall and still, standing right behind the mirror glass, eyes dark and mouth slightly open, as if mouthing something. They checked the hallway immediately. Nothing. The mirror stayed cold. It was the toddler who said it again. This time clearer. Elle's cold. Jenna froze mid-fold, a pile of laundry on her lap. What did you say, baby? Elle, said her daughter, tapping her stuffed bunny's nose. She doesn't like the night. She says it's loud in there. In where? The girl pointed down the hall. To the mirror. Marc dismissed it. Kids say weird things. Imaginary friends are part of growing up. But something about the way she said it. It wasn't playful. It was like she was passing along a message. That night, Jenna placed a blanket over the mirror. Just a precaution. A way to feel normal again. The hallway lights stopped flickering immediately. The air lightened. The cat resumed its usual patrol. But the dreams came. Both Marc and Jenna had the same one. They didn't realize it until breakfast, when Marc said, "I had the weirdest," and Jenna finished the sentence, "dream." The hallway. The stairs. The humming. They both dreamed they were walking past the mirror. But it wasn't their hallway. It was darker, older, the wallpaper peeling and breathing like lungs. Something behind the mirror was tapping. Slow, deliberate. A rhythm they couldn't place. And a voice, just barely audible, whispering under the sound, "Don't forget the name." She forgot her name. Jenna woke with a word in her throat she didn't recognize. Not English. Not any language she could place. Just a sound, trailing like fog from the edge of sleep. Marc didn't tell her, but he'd heard the same sound. And on his phone, in the recording from the night before, there was no static this time. Just tapping. 13 slow knocks. And the faintest breath. Right before the clip cut to black. They tried to ignore it. They went about their weekend, took the kids to the park, made pancakes, blasted music in the kitchen. But the house never fully joined them. It sat apart, quiet in the wrong places, like it was waiting for them to notice something they hadn't yet. Sunday night, the blanket came off the mirror. They didn't remove it. They found it neatly folded at the base, as if someone had unhooked it with careful hands and laid it down with intention. The hallway was cold again. The air near the mirror felt thinner. Like walking through a room just after a door slams. Marc grabbed a hammer and nails, muttering about pranksters, raccoons, a breeze. He secured the cloth over the glass again. The nails were pulled out by morning. 3, precisely. The others untouched. As if the cloth had been peeled back along a specific arc. They didn't say anything to each other. Just drank coffee in silence, watching the hallway out of the corners of their eyes. At noon, Jenna found 13 small marks in the wood beneath the mirror. Perfectly spaced, a tight half-moon. Like fingertips. Or claws. Each about the size of a child's knuckle. Marc counted them twice. Same number of knocks in the recording. Jenna didn't respond. She was staring at the mirror's edge, where the frame met the wall. Her reflection blinked. She hadn't. That night, they left the lights on. And again, the toddler whispered in her sleep. She says the glass is thin now. She says, "You're letting her through." By Tuesday, the house had changed. It wasn't just the cold spot near the mirror, or the cat now refusing to even enter the hallway. It was the sound. The subtle layering of noises that didn't belong. Soft breathing from behind closed doors. The tap of bare feet across the floor above, even when everyone was downstairs. The occasional static hum from the baby monitor, which Jenna had unplugged the night before. Marc started keeping a notepad. He wrote down each sound, the time it happened, and any odd detail. On the 4th page, his notes shifted from times and descriptions to a question, scrawled 3 times across the margin: "What does she want?" Jenna stopped sleeping. The dreams had deepened. She no longer walked through hallways, now she stood in a room full of mirrors. Not their house. Older. With furniture covered in sheets and ivy curling in through the cracks. Every mirror showed her something different. Not versions of herself, but others. A girl with wet hair standing behind her. A woman in a veil whispering to the floor. And in one, the mirror was blank. No reflection at all. Just a shadow. Flickering slowly, rhythmically, like someone rocking on their heels in the dark. In the dream, Jenna reached out to touch it. And woke with blood on her fingertip. Just a small dot. Like a pinprick. Marc hadn't slept at all. He was watching the hallway. Camera rolling. Coffee cold. And sometime around 4:23 a.m. something leaned into frame. Not a full figure. Just a head. Slowly emerging from the mirror, neck bent too far, eyes gleaming like wet stones. It didn't move like a person. It moved like it had learned to pretend to be one. And it watched him. Not the camera. Him. Marc turned off the recording. But the screen stayed on. And the shadow behind the glass began to smile. Jenna started dreaming in languages she didn't understand. Long syllables that echoed even after waking. She'd lie there in the early morning light, mouth half open, still whispering fragments. It terrified her, but worse was the sense that the words meant something. Like she was being taught. Marc found the old owners online. Most had moved away, some refused to speak about the house. One email reply came back from a woman who had lived there as a girl, in the 80s. Her message was short. If you found the mirror, you need to leave. It's not yours to carry. We covered it for a reason. Don't speak to her. Don't ask her name. Attached was a photo. A black and white image of the same hallway, from decades ago. The wallpaper was different, but unmistakable. And there in the photo, half-shadowed behind the family posing stiffly, was the same mirror. Only it wasn't empty. You could just make out the outline of a woman's head in the glass. Turned away. Watching the family from behind her own shoulder. Marc deleted the photo from his phone. But that night, when he turned on the hallway light, the bulb exploded in a quiet pop, and he saw her. Just for a second. Standing in the glass, watching. Jenna was starting to change. She spoke to the hallway. Not often, but when she passed it. Words like, I know, or, not now, said softly, almost like replies. She didn't notice herself doing it. The toddler stopped speaking altogether. She pointed now. Just pointed, silent and wide-eyed, to the mirror. One morning, she left small drawings under her parents' door. Scribbled in crayon. All of them the same, the hallway, the mirror, and a tall woman with black hair drawn in harsh, trembling lines. Each picture was signed. Elle. Marc boarded the mirror up. Not covered it, sealed it. Wooden planks, screws, layers of tape, and a heavy canvas tarp nailed across the frame. He moved a bookcase in front of it. Sprinkled salt along the baseboard, not because he believed in it, but because he didn't know what else to do. For 2 days, the house quieted. The toddler started humming again. Jenna slept through the night. Even the cat curled up in the hallway for the first time in weeks. But Marc didn't relax. Because on the third night, the mirror knocked back. Not loud. Not urgent. Just 1, 2, 3 soft raps. Like a polite guest at the door. Then nothing. He recorded the sound, played it back on loop. Each knock was followed by something faint. A voice? A word? He isolated the audio. Turned up the volume. It was a woman's voice. Clearer than before. Why won't you see me? Marc didn't tell Jenna. She seemed better. Lighter, somehow. But he caught her once, standing by the sealed mirror, her eyes closed, whispering something into the wood. Later that night, he opened her notebook. She hadn't written in weeks. But now there were pages, dozens, filled with symbols, circles, repeated phrases in a spiraling script that bent inward toward the center of each page. At the heart of one spiral was a drawing, the mirror, cracked, bleeding light from within. The caption read, "The glass is thin." She remembers her name. Marc burned the notebook in the fireplace. The smoke was thick, and it smelled like roses. That night, every mirror in the house, bathroom, vanity, even the toaster's chrome edge, held the same reflection. A hallway that didn't belong to them. And in it, someone walking closer. Jenna disappeared for 3 hours. Not left the house, disappeared. One moment she was folding laundry in the bedroom, the next Marc was calling her name through every room, panic tightening around his ribs. Doors locked. No sign of her leaving. The kids hadn't seen her go. Her phone was still charging beside the bed. Then, just before sunset, she stepped out of the guest room, barefoot and pale, blinking like she'd just come out of water. "I was in the mirror," she whispered. "I saw her." Marc grabbed her, wrapped her in a blanket, checked her for injuries. She wasn't cold. In fact, her skin felt warm, too warm, as if she'd been standing in sunlight somewhere far away. She wouldn't talk much, just fragments. "There's a room behind it. A hollow place. Old as silence. She's not angry. She's unfinished. She remembers me." That night, the planks over the mirror splintered. Marc heard it around 3 a.m., a sharp crack, like someone snapping kindling. He ran to the hallway. The bookcase had been pushed aside. The tarp hung loose. And the glass was clear again, no fog, no distortion, just perfectly reflective, unnaturally still. Like a frozen lake. He couldn't see himself in it. Just the hallway behind him. Except, in the reflection, the hallway went further than it should. It kept going. Stairs led down into blackness. And something was standing halfway down, holding a candle that didn't flicker. A hand reached up. Pressed gently against the inside of the mirror. And left a perfect, wet palm print. Marc backed away slowly. The next morning, it was gone. No damage, no water, nothing broken. Except for the mirror itself. There was now a single, hairline crack running from top to bottom. It pulsed, faintly, like a heartbeat. They packed to leave. Marc didn't care about the lease. Jenna wasn't arguing anymore. Even the kids felt it, some deep, pressing wrongness in the house, like gravity had tilted sideways. But the mirror wouldn't let go. On the morning they planned to go, every door in the house was found slightly open. Not wide, just a few inches. Like an invitation. Or a warning. Their car keys were missing. Found later in the oven. The cat had vanished entirely. Jenna stood in front of the mirror again. She wasn't sleepwalking. She wasn't confused. She was calm. "She's not trying to hurt us," she said quietly. "She wants us to see." Marc pleaded with her to step away. But she didn't move. She was shut in, Jenna continued, tears starting. Covered up. Forgotten. They buried her with names that weren't hers. And now she's unraveling. That night, the mirror opened. Not in the way a door opens. It bent. The crack widened until light bled through. Pale, flickering light like moon through water. And in it, they could see the hallway again, the one that wasn't theirs. The one Jenna described in her dreams. The one with ivy on the walls and breath in the wallpaper. And standing in the middle of it was Elle. She wasn't a woman. Not entirely. Too tall, limbs too long, joints bent slightly backward. But her face, God, her face looked human enough. And full of something bottomless. Not hatred. Not sorrow. Hunger. She stepped closer to the glass. Smiled with a mouth she hadn't used in a long time. And spoke, not aloud, but directly into Jenna's head. "You've remembered me. Now you're part." The mirror shuddered. and Jenna collapsed. They left the house the next morning. There was no discussion. No dramatic goodbye. They gathered what they could carry, took the kids, still silent, still watching, and drove. They never looked back at the hallway. Jenna was quiet for days. She didn't sleep. She didn't eat much. But her eyes kept drifting toward blank spaces, windows, puddles, black screens, anywhere a reflection might appear. And Marc knew the mirror had marked her. They never told the new owners. Maybe they should have. But how do you explain a mirror that remembers names, that opens like a wound? How do you warn someone about a shadow that flickers in your absence? A few months later, a letter arrived. No return address. Just a single sheet of paper, folded neatly. No handwriting. Just a photo, printed in black and white. The hallway. Their hallway. But longer. Dimmer. And at the far end, just barely visible, two children standing in the dark. Staring at something the camera couldn't see. Behind them, a mirror. Uncovered. Whole. The letter smelled faintly of roses. Marc burned it in the sink. But sometimes, just sometimes, when the lights flicker in their new house, when a reflection lasts 1 second too long, when their daughter hums a tune no one taught her, Jenna will whisper the same phrase under her breath. The glass is thin. And Marc can't help but look over his shoulder, toward mirrors he hasn't yet covered. Just to make sure she's not already here.